Okay, guys. Well, welcome back to this latest Autoimmunity Club meeting. It's the 4th of September 2022. And I'm saying that because this one I'm going to put out on YouTube as a sort of the initial bit, as a video I've been wanting to make for a while, but also because I'd like to sort of show people what goes on here and how we hang out and all the misbehavior that happens and all that sort of thing, and get them to come and join in, see if we can get some more people on. So if you're watching this, I'd really like to talk about arthritis flare-ups, because whatever you're doing and whoever you are, if you've had it or any autoimmunity, it is possible to have a flare-up. And I'd like to delve into the reasons why, and this works for any autoimmunity, obviously, or any illness whatsoever. But I'd like to delve into this. I'd also like to make it relevant to the people who say that a carnivore diet, it doesn't cure any autoimmunity. It just covers up the symptoms. So when people say that, they assume that we should be cured to the point where we can eat pizza and Cocoa Pops and whatever all day long, just like we used to, and that will be fine. Hi, Ryan.
Good morning or good afternoon.
How are you doing? Listen, just to say that I said before to everybody that I'm doing this one with a bit of a rant to start with, and on arthritis flare-ups. And it's going out on my YouTube channel. All right. This one is one that'll be public. So if anything you want to be kept private until next week, because we're doing another one next week. So bear that in mind. Anyway, I think a lot of people would, who are sort of considered some sort of influencer, like I appear to be an arthritis and carnivore diet influencer, would probably keep this secret. But I'm not only telling you, but I want to tell everybody, because it's what happened to me in the last week is a really good example, or the last couple of weeks, I guess. So here's what happened. About 2-3 weeks ago, I ate, the family cooked some sausages, right? And it had black pudding in it and apple. And I thought the apple's a bit crap, but I do fancy trying one. I'll just try a bite. So I tried a bite, and it was really nice. So I had another couple of them, and I didn't think to read the ingredients list. And so I looked on the ingredients list, and there was a load of crap like rice and potato starch in it. And I thought, well, I'm immune, nothing will happen. And I started to feel a bit odd, and I started to even feel it in my joints, which I hardly ever do these days, just nothing. And I thought, that's a bit weird. Anyway, so I went to played a festival, and it was fine. I was out in the sun. Everything was good, barefoot in the grass all day long, still sleeping in a tent and whatever. So not much sleep after a gig at a festival. And then I came back, and I was really tired, really, really tired. And I thought, I've got another festival next weekend. It's the new moon. It's probably a detox time. I'm going to do a liver flush. So I did a liver flush on the Tuesday night, and felt way better a couple of days afterwards. Went off and played this festival, forgot about everything. Again, I was walking around barefoot. I was in the sun all day, and nothing happened. I'm feeling tremendously healthy, played the gig really late at night, no sleep, drove back, worried about the van blowing up because it was something wrong with it. And worried that because my van is worth less than the ride cymbal in my drum kit. So I was like, I need to get my drums home, right? And my van, I don't care. I don't care about my van. So I got home, and I got home late that evening, and I was really hungry, because often you don't eat in the sun at festivals. And I was really hungry, and I don't normally eat late at night. And I thought, I don't want to cook. I'm so tired. And I looked in the fridge, and there was a couple of burgers. And I thought, I can't even be bothered to heat them up. But I tell you what, I don't know what possessed me. I thought, right, I'll spread them with butter and peanut butter and eat them. So I did that. And then I kind of felt a bit odd, I felt a bit stiff going to bed. And I woke up and I wasn't feeling that good. And I hadn't unloaded the van. There was tons of stuff in there, camping gear, everything. I thought I better get this done quickly. And it started to hurt. By the evening, my knee had blown up, which it hasn't done for years. My and I had this unbelievable sciatica. Something had inflamed in the sacroiliac joint, and it had it just caused this tremendous pain down the leg and in my bum, in the buttock, and it just would not stop. I mean, I couldn't sleep, nothing. And this was Tuesday. And this went on, and I thought, right, okay, no problem. I've done some damage with the peanut butter, right? There's a load of lectins in peanut butter, but I thought it's a bit odd because actually I've done that probably 2 or 3 times in the past 4 years because there's peanut butter lying around. Nothing ever happened. I wouldn't do that while I was healing up, but nothing happened. So I thought this is a surprising reaction to that. And I was still, even though I know all the layers to things, I was still really focusing on food. And I thought, right, it's got to be a dry fast. Fortunately, I had a load of time off and I was able to rest. And I thought, actually, I've got a gig coming up on Saturday, but that got cancelled. Nature kind of takes care of you because last night it would have been the gig. Actually, I could have done it, but I'll come to that. But I was in pain. I mean, real pain. I could hardly walk on that knee. The sciatica didn't hurt when I walked around, but I couldn't sleep at night because it was constant. The pain wouldn't go away. There was no comfortable position. And I sort of suffered this. And I thought, right, I'll dry fast. I'll do this. I'll do that. And I thought, no, listen, I'm just going to do exactly what my body wants. So sometimes it wanted no water. Sometimes it wanted some water. Suddenly, after 24 hours without water or something, I'd want some water. So I'd drink some water. And then I'd have a sort of vision of something that I really wanted to eat. And I thought, I can't eat that because anything causes a flare to get worse when you're in a flare. No, I will just eat anything I want. So I ate anything I wanted, which was basically fatty beef and lamb, but in different forms, and some fish, and here and there, with long periods in between, only one meal a day. And then it came to Thursday night, and I was so exhausted, and I kind of fell asleep for about an hour, and then I woke up, and I was in real pain, and I thought, right, I've got to sort this out. It was the middle of the night. And so I sat down on the sofa and I thought, I'll just have to ride it out. And I put some headphones on with a really long cord, and we have an orange screen on our TV. And I thought, right, I'm going to binge watch some Naked and Afraid. It's so entertaining. So anyway, I started watching that and I thought, I need to move. And, people have routines of yoga or Somatics. Like I have a Somatics program for sale on my website. A friend of mine did it many years ago. It's brilliant. When you're really sick, it's a great way to sort of free up energies, and it's even more gentle than yoga. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll go into that old mindset of the old yogis. They never had a set program. They would just go into positions as they felt. In fact, it was probably as the Kundalini was rising or whatever, and they cognized these positions. And so I thought, right, I'll just go with that. Not that I'm any great yogi or anything, but I just thought, I just need to move this way. I need to move that way. I need to move. And then I thought, after it was literally a couple of hours of that on the floor in the living room, I thought, hang on a minute. Why have I got this sciatica? I thought, so what is the root of sciatica? And I thought, well, I know anyway, but I'm going to read it to you out of this book. And we got into some of the emotional stuff last week at the end. And I think this is so important to talk about because there is a certain part of the body, when I had a huge flare up, when I had this awful stomach issue, like 2 years ago, I had one that took me about 3 weeks to get out of. I've talked about that a lot online. And Dr. Pran Yoganathan, a carnivore gastroenterologist, told me that very often after things like cholera and dysentery, people can have autoimmune issues kick off because of course, the gut's made very leaky. I sorted that out. That was huge. It got into every joint and I was completely incapacitated for the first time in 10 years. I got rid of that in sort of 3 weeks, which took me 3 years to get rid of back in 2010. But this time was different because why would I get such a huge flare up, but just in the knee and just in the sacroiliac? So I thought, okay, right. I knew about this, but if nobody's got this book yet, is that the right way around or is that the wrong way around for you? It's mirroring it for me. The Secret Language of Your Body by Inna Seagal. It's very much like the old Louise Hay books, but I mean, just check this out. Sciatica, feeling stuck in the past, worried about your survival, money issues, unresolved feelings of inadequacy from childhood, rejecting yourself and imposing too many limitations on yourself, always finding excuses for why you can't do something rather than focus on how you can, profound fear that if you're honest, you will be neither liked nor accepted, and that you will not be able to survive. Feeling burdened with too much responsibility, which stifles your creativity. Now, that last one's me, and the first few are me. This is to do with money issues, worried about survival. Now, I hadn't really thought about it too much. And then I realized that I've actually had a sort of long-term fight or flight, sort of being really worried about money and survival. And, you know, it hasn't ever been a panic or anything, but it's been an underlying thing. And I think all of us have that to a certain extent these days. There's this business with the fuel prices, you know, the faked fuel prices and all that nonsense, and the energy prices. There's the food, you know, have we got enough in the freezers? Have I got enough to, you know, in the generator to run it if the power goes down? All this kind of thing. You know, my family, you know, I've got to protect them and all that sort of thing in the middle of money worries. And I thought, this has really been bugging me for ages. And I've lost faith. And so I thought, I forgot with all the positions, but they probably helped. They probably helped to bring my attention to it. But I then sat down and I said, okay, I'm going to totally rephrase this, you know, reframe it rather. And I did a load of tapping and I did a load of sort of looking at what I was feeling. And I realized, look, as my missus always tells me, who doesn't have this problem, when we need money, something comes up every single time. There hasn't been a time where it hasn't. But I still panic about it. And she keeps going, what's the matter with you? You know, as soon as something like that happens, or the bank accounts hit zero or worse, you know, something happens and we're fine. There'd been that issue. And I just completely reframed it. And I said, do you know what nonsense that is? Why do I not have faith and sort of gratitude that this has happened? I haven't had sciatica since in the last few days. The whole thing disappeared in a couple of minutes, because I truly reframed it. However, the process hadn't shut down. The knee was still hurting. So why was that? And I thought, so what's the knee? It's moving forward in life. It's being stuck, that kind of thing. And so then I thought, well, what am I feeling about that? Well, it's obvious, you know, for a long time, well, this year, we've been trying to sell houses, our rental houses, which we don't want anymore. And we want to move on, do something else. They're squeezing us out with all these restrictions and regulations and whatever that make it almost impossible to be a landlord these days. That's why everybody's flogging their houses. Rental people are out on the streets. You know, it's BlackRock buying up all these properties, probably. It's all deliberate, but we had no choice. So we're trying to sell them. Solicitors are messing about, mortgage companies are messing about, and there was delays. And eventually I got them through an auction in July, and they sold, except for one of them. Sold 3 or 4 of them, and there was one of them left. Now, these are not, it's not like I'm rich. These are all mortgaged up to the hilt, you know, so we didn't get much out of them. But we got rid of them. We don't have any debts. We were able to pay the debts, that kind of thing. We didn't have much money to do the plans that we do. We wanted a big wagon, go traveling, all that kind of thing, really do up the house that we are buying. And there's also a load of delays with solicitors on that. And that has been a real nasty one, because a friend stepped in, wonderful friend, and loaned us the money to buy this house when mortgage companies wouldn't. Incredible guy. I have some wonderful friends. And that because of the 3 solicitors, because of the loan, there was 3 solicitors involved. It's delayed so long that the owners have slapped another eviction notice on us, which is a ridiculous thing to do when it's about to go through. But they have done anyway. So there's this problem about things moving through. And so I thought, well, it's very difficult to get rid of an acute thing like that until it actually goes. Okay, you can tone it down. And I couldn't get that one that night. I couldn't get it. I couldn't get any relief from it. Next day, that would have been Friday, I got an email from my solicitor with all the forms sorted out, all ready to sign. It'll go through. The knee was fine from that day. And I mean, and what did I do? Okay, I'm on a carnivore diet. If I hadn't have been, it would have probably been much more severe. But this is the point. Everything you have to look at. And when you're this is why with my clients, I never try and give them a set procedure, a set protocol to do exactly. I mean, I'll advise them really beef, lamb, salt, and water is probably the least inflammatory for the gut. But if they've got other things going on, it might not be so effective. And for me, it's been effective for 99% of the last 12 years. But occasionally, we have our tendencies in our bodies. And when they've learned to do one thing or another thing, somebody will get hay fever, somebody will get arthritis, somebody will get, IBS or whatever it is. You sometimes get some kind of a flare, in which case I think I try and teach people to look at exactly what's going on in the moment, because in the moment, there's really seldom anything wrong. So what's going on in the moment, and you can see what's worrying you. And that is the illusion that's probably creating the issue to start with. I know that we're not going to be out in the street. I really know that at a deep level, but still something bothers me about it. So at the moment, right here, right now, am I being thrown out into the street? No. So why am I worried? There's plenty of things I can do about it. There's plenty, and that email came through and sorted it out. So this is the thing when sometimes I'm a bit vague about what should I do when somebody asks me with a flare. It's in the moment. And I wanted to mention this one that happened to me because while it's fresh in my mind, because it's not always easy when you're in pain, but it's just to really, really accept it and say, what's it trying to teach me? Okay, this moment, it's trying to teach me to get up off the sofa and roll around on the floor and do this and do that and stretch and pull myself up on the kitchen counter and try and crunch my sacroiliac out, with less gravity and all that sort of thing. And all of these little things can be perfect or exactly what you need to eat at the time. Instead of going, I am going on a 5-day water fast or a 3-day dry fast or whatever it is, to make plans, to absolutely listen to your body. The body knows everything. And the body's connected to the mind, and the mind's connected to the whole spiritual realm. And that's all the emotions and the fears and everything. And so that is a video I've been wanting to make for a while, but I wanted to make it in relation to me now, because I can say exactly what happened and how it worked, even through the night, where most people wake up, oh my God, I'm terrified, I'm in such pain, I need to get some painkillers and go back to sleep, right? That'd be the first thing. But for me, it was just like, ride it out and see what happens. The house is quiet, nobody's up, I can just chill out and listen to this, And I'm not always that wise, but over the years, I've learned to be, back in 2010, when I had this, I was not that wise. And it took me 3 years to piece it all together. And even to believe that the emotional side had much to do with it. But having had one, back in 2013, when my ankles were still kicking off and moving out from my living in the same house as my mum, looking after her, and instead splitting the houses up. And that thing to do with the ankles being not look for something you're trying not to run away from, because she was very difficult, And then my ankles healed up completely with no change in diet, even though other joints were kicking off. So it's a matter of detective work. So to kind of recap, why did I get that flare up? Was it the panic about the house? No. Was it the panic about not having enough money? No. Was it the peanut butter? No. Was it the sausage? No. Was it the liver flush and the new moon? Because that's a time of detox, and the liver flush might have kicked things off. Was it the fact that I had been really run down and been to so many festivals, done so many gigs, so many rehearsals constantly with hardly any sleep at a time of all that stress? Was it that? No. Was it the fact that I weighed myself this morning? I'm usually 12 stone 4, which is 172 pounds. And I stay at that, whatever I eat, whatever I do. And I weighed myself this morning and I'm 11 stone 6. Now that's within a week. And is that because I was incredibly ill and not eating? No. It was probably because there was a fat release, because there was an emotional release. And there's also perhaps around the new moon. So was it the toxins that were released in the fat because I was also releasing certain issues during that healing phase? No. It was all of them. It was that perfect storm that created everything, that made me hang on to the fears, to make me hang on to the false beliefs, and all of these little things. Like most people would think, oh, I ate some peanut butter, so I got lectin poisoning. Well, on one level might well have been. But why was it that I could do that 6 months ago, the last time I did it, and nothing happened at all? So it's a combination of these things when you go into a flare of a perfect storm. And sometimes the first time we go into flares and we get frightened, it's because, or if we go into flares when we've had them a long time, but there's unresolved things, we can not look at everything all at once. And I'm really lucky because I've been able to sort of sit around and learn this stuff and also help people and see them get things right, that it takes often more than one thing. And so, yeah, to recap, there was a whole load of things involving everything from spirituality to money worries to peanut butter, that would have caused that issue. And so, I don't know, there you go, chaps. That was my initial rant. And that's sort of used up a load of time. But any thoughts on that? I just thought I'd share that one and get it out on YouTube. And so I'd use you as an audience for that and see what you thought.
Well, it ties in pretty well your recent video with Nicole Kalidas, because I think you guys touched on that a lot. I think some of the worries and emotional issues with that. But boy, what a hard thing to track. While you were talking about that, I'm like, well, we can document what we eat every day and try to line up things like my back going out or sciatica and things like that. But that what you're talking about actually warrants kind of maybe keeping an emotional log also. Like, yeah, this is what I've been eating. Now, how was my worrying today? Because I'm in that world a lot, worrying about job, and I have meat in the freezer and things like that, because if we have another shortage or something like that for months, I worry about that stuff too. But it varies from day to day how much I'm worrying about that kind of thing. So yeah, it's interesting that you were able to put it all together.
Yeah, these things always fluctuate because it's amazing now. I mean, I've been doing stuff all day. I've been running around. I don't notice it even happened. And for the severity of the flare, I would expect it to take a month or so to die down, and I'm absolutely fine now. I've been, doing my second favorite activity to playing the drums, which is playing Meccano and setting up cymbal sets that I'd never thought of before, or some stuff like that. And this is going to be the ideal one, isn't it, Ryan? Ryan's a drummer, if anyone's watching this who doesn't know. And this is the ideal one. I'm never going to deviate from this. And, like 5 minutes later, you've got another idea. But, that sort of thing, it's sort of you'd lugging drums around and sort of heaving things around, getting into positions that you can't get into if your joints are knackered, and I've been doing that all day and absolutely fine. And, running around to supermarkets and this and that. And this really is, you've got to look at everything. In fact, there's another thing I didn't mention, full disclosure, which everybody knows that I drink some brandy now and again, really enjoy it because I was teetotal all my life, and my liver results were really bad when I was teetotal and vegetarian, and now they're perfect. So I indulge every now and again. However, that could also have been a factor because although it doesn't affect me day to day, if I stay carnivore, have no problem. I don't get a flare from it. I don't get any issue from it at all. But it could well be still taking that gut integrity down a little bit, added to the stresses of everything else, added to the peanut butter, added to the tiredness, added to everything, and then that could be the straw that broke the camel's back as well. All of these things you've got to look at in your life. And actually, Peace, I've got to say something here with something that our friend Jeremy always says, that if there's something that you're not willing to give up for 30 days, it's quite probably the root cause of your issue, or at least a major one. That's really true. I see that in a lot of people. And so, you asked me about the fat loss thing. And I know that it's difficult, particularly with women, particularly with their more complicated hormonal makeup. But it's also been evident with me. I mean, in the past, I've just had to drop the fat levels a bit in the meat and I get really lean. And this time it hasn't worked. Whatever I've done, fasted, this or that, stayed at 12 stone 4. But 12 stone 4, 172 pounds, 5'10", that's fine. It's not like it's any problem. I don't have ripped abs, but I'm not really bothered about that. If I do want them, I generally know how to do it. And so I tried a little while back because I had a competition with the bass player in the band. And we had an ab competition because the guitarist, Kirk, is just whatever he eats. He's amazing, muscular, abs out, 30 years old. Metabolism might catch up with him one day, but at the moment he looks amazing. And so we thought, right, we've got to catch up with Kirk. And I thought, well, I can do that, and I couldn't. But now I can because it's dropping off. It's really, I couldn't believe it when I looked at the scales this morning. And it's not like I sort of wasted away and lost energy or anything. The energy's all back, everything's back, and the scales are going down. It's fascinating. An emotional release, whatever, blah, blah. I don't know what it is exactly, but there are two things that fat is for. And that is for, on a physical level, it stores toxins. The body packs toxins away in there. If it's not ready to release them, if you're taking in a load of toxins, it's not going to release them. It's not about calories in, calories out. Jack Kruse once said, obesity isn't a disease of overeating, it's an inflammatory brain disorder. And I love that, because it is, there's something going on in the brain that is not allowing the body to release those toxins. It's not about burning fat, it's about releasing toxins. And you often see people, they'll lose a load of weight and that fat, let's say fat, we don't want to lose weight, we don't want to lose muscle or bone density, we want to lose fat. So people lose fat and then they hit a plateau, they hit a brick wall, they can't lose any more. And this is often down to the fact that they are quite toxic. I didn't measure my weight after the liver flush. So it could very well have been that I got rid of a load of toxins out of the liver, because there was some really weird stones. It wasn't like the light green ones that you normally get. You know, they were dark green, and there was some black ones. There was real sinister looking ones in there. And I wonder if it just released enough for the liver to then be able to process some toxins from the fat that it then wanted to release. And so that, you see, it's not a matter of calories in, calories out, what you eat exactly for losing fat if you're full of toxins, and the body's protecting you. But again, another thing Jeremy always says, the body can't work against you. And so it's working for you, it's holding on to that. And the second reason is it protects you against stuff. If you're going from a hard time, I mean, emotionally, you often see people going through a hard time, you know, and they'll put on weight. It kind of protects you. And it's probably, you know, it's on both levels at once. But I know you've been going through some hard times, Pete. I mean, my God, you know, you lost your land up there. You had this great community and these bastards came in and took it over. And now you're in a transition to living in a van and stuff and getting that all sorted. That's some heavy stuff, you know, that's a big life upheaval. So is your body going to release that last bit of fat that you want it to release at the moment? Maybe not. Maybe you need to sort of look at absolutely all levels, emotional and everything, and wait for certain things out of your control even to calm down. And then that happens and the body releases it. So those are my thoughts on autoimmunity and fat loss. Cool. Ryan, how are you doing? Tell us, have you had any flares or anything? What's going on?
I've been doing pretty well. No major flares. I've been, I've been 99% compliant on carnivore, and I've kind of experimented a little bit here and there with some fruit, some avocado, and luckily I haven't had any major flares from that. And honestly, I kind of did it as an experiment just to see what's going to happen, you know, if I have some fruit. And luckily I'm not relying on gigs right now for income, so I kind of had that luxury to be able to do that just in case, you know, my wrist was locking up and I couldn't play. But I've been playing some gigs and practicing, and my wrist is in the best shape that it's been in since May, when I had a major flare up, which is awesome. And admittedly, I would have thought, well, what's actually doing this? Is it the diet, or is it the fact that 3 months have passed since May and this flare up has released? But I do see that the results are more linked to the diet because my other joints feel better. So where normally in the morning I would wake up and have a stiff knee or drive for 8 hours. I've been driving up to Michigan from Tennessee and get out of the car, and normally my knee is kind of locked up and you're hobbling to the restroom or whatever at a stop. I don't have any of that, and I'm realizing that lack of inflammation is definitely because of the diet. So all that being said, I feel really great. And yeah, I feel like I've just kind of been in a phase where I feel like I've had the luxury of being able to experiment a little bit. very busy with a new job and new work. So I've had some caffeine and maybe coffee or tea here and there, but I feel lucky that I'm able to do that and not have a major flare up, which I think is good as well. And I honestly do think that addressing the emotional side helps with that too, partially because I see some of the results from doing this diet, and I have a sense of pride that I've been able to do such a hard thing, essentially like change my life and have a new way of eating. And so there's a sense of pride. I've been working out and I feel generally good about my life, putting me in the mindset where I'm like, okay, I can afford a moment of trying something a little bit different, and also knowing that whatever happens, I'm going to accept it, because that is ultimately all that you can do. And so I feel lucky that I've been in that spot, and I feel pretty good. All that being said, and yeah, the emotional side of things is definitely something I think about, and I think it can be, my mind will fluctuate a little bit between thinking, well, this might be woo woo, or this might have some truth behind it. And it does. I do believe it has truth behind it. I'm one of those people who believe, like, okay, same with like maybe dream interpretation. I feel there is a way to understand what this spiritual, emotional, everything intertwined ultimate you is trying to show you. But at the same time, I don't necessarily believe you just Google, hey, what does this dream mean? And then there's somebody has it figured out. Same with pain in the body. I'm not entirely sure if I believe, oh, your left index finger is because your mom told you no more cookies when you were a kid. So it's hard for me to believe it, but I do believe that there is an emotional and overall picture that you need to look into. And I think maybe what it is, and Phil, you talking about it makes me think that it's your body asking you to dig. Maybe your body and your emotional complex doesn't know. And so maybe it is just asking you to put in the work to figure it out and work together to resolve those issues. That being said, I think that's some work that I need to do. I've never had therapy in my life, and I've thought, well, maybe it would be a good time to just have some therapy and do this, along on this way of eating and this journey. So I think I'm going to start in a couple of weeks. But besides that, really my whole mindset while doing this and eating this way is I'm just going to accept everything in my life, and it's really helped, and it's allowed me to kind of deviate a little bit here and there and experiment without fear. And I think the fear side of things really keeps me inflamed, keeps me worried, and keeps the stressors on. So I like this subject matter today because definitely resonating with that.
Oh, that's fantastic, isn't it? I mean, I think that I think the emotional side is not as clear cut as I read it out of that book. I mean, like, you can often look at those things in there and they can be spot on, or in other books or whatever, but you also sometimes have to interpret, say, what have I got going on in my life that's kind of that flavor at the moment? Is there something that's really weighing me down? Whether it's a money worry or not, or if you're really worried about your kid or your mum or whatever it is, that can also be something that really weighs down, that would affect the back, for example, and maybe other places. The story about my wrist, I don't know whether I ever told it, but it was like, I think about 2013, and I was in Glastonbury. I probably told this, but it's relevant at the moment. And I went to some secondhand bookshop, and I'd got rid of it out of like most joints, but my wrist had a real flare up again. It hadn't bothered me since the 90s, really, when it started. And it was so painful, I had to strap it up so it couldn't move. And I took this, I thought, I just want an answer. Give me an answer. And I swear this sounds like a lie, right? But I picked up a book from the outside. They had a rack outside, a sort of shelf thing with a load of books in. I picked a book out and I opened it. And the first thing I read was, troubles with the wrist are to do with your reach exceeding your grasp. I'm like, what? What is this book? And it wasn't even anything to do with health. It was just some book. Okay, was it maybe even a novel or something? I can't remember even what it was. But it was nothing even to do with health. I opened it at that page and I didn't even understand what it meant. And then I thought, hang on, yeah, I do understand, because when I look back to the early 90s, when it started, I was never satisfied with anything I was playing. I wanted to be somebody else all the time. You know, I had late 80s, early 90s, I had, you know, Dave Weckles' Music Minus One thing, you know, and I could not get that 7/8 songo. What's that one, Island Magic or something? I bet you've seen it.
Yeah,
You know,
that dude is
and you know that songo is one of the most difficult things to get to groove, and it's a 7/8 and it's backwards, and he just nails it, you know. And that was late 80s, and now, I mean, he's just so fluid. It's ridiculous watching him. But now I just watch him. I was watching him this morning, actually. It has a weekly thing, you know, since the COVID hoax. You know, he's got this thing going on, and weekly, and beautiful. But I watch it now with great joy. Before, it was like, I am so jealous. I want to be able to do that. You know, I can't do it, and why can't I do that? And I need to be able to play like that. I listened back to some of the stuff I was making then. I haven't listened to for ages, and it was way out there. It was really interesting. I was never satisfied with it. And so it's my reach exceeding my grasp. And that was the feeling of it. And it really locked up my wrist. It was like, I just can't do this anymore, you know? And the body was saying that. And so there are certain emotions. I mean, have you, with your wrist, because I'm interested, it's your wrist is the most problem. Have you ever had a time, because you're sort of studying now and stuff like that, have you ever had a time where you've been sort of frustrated with playing and wanted to be way better than you are, or anything in your life that's like that? Because it hit me again in 2013 when my reach exceeded my grasp. I wanted to be well today. And that was what kicked the wrist off the game. You know, it was that similar feeling.
Well, so what's hard for me to determine is, well, I went to school and I studied jazz, and that it's a very competitive landscape, and it's supportive, but there's always an air of competition because we're human beings, and naturally you're going to encounter musicians who are either coming in as guests and are world-renowned musicians like Peter Erskine visited, right? And or you're also competing with students and you're trying to gig, you're trying to network, and you're trying to, you know, go to school and get good grades and support yourself and work. And so it was hard for me to tell whether or not, to back up a little bit, my autoimmune condition really set off when I was in college. So all of my main symptoms really started off when I was about 2 years in, which is right about, you know, finally I could feel the weight of it about halfway through. That's when I had my first real inflammatory attack on actually not really my wrist so much, but my fingers. I had some dactylitis, I think they call it, so inflammation of the fingers, and I couldn't really play because my finger was like a bratwurst sausage. It was huge. My knee locked up. I couldn't walk, and so it's hard for me to think whether or not it's tied to the creative side of things, but I do think that it is an energy block because most people want to be creative, and I feel that we all have things to offer, and we have a constructive and creative side of ourselves that wants to be seen. So whether or not it's in the context of drumming specifically, or whatever else you might do, I definitely felt that this ideal that I was on a trajectory towards in school, it became more and more vague, and I became more and more afraid of not reaching that if I wasn't performing how I should perform in school and living up to what my own expectations were of being a drummer, a musician. But then on top of that, there was just loads of stress. So again, this is where I'm not entirely sure if it's a one-to-one correlation between that creative side and like my body was like, oh, I'm going to torture you and make you not be able to play drums. I'm not so sure of that, but I do know that there were energy blocks, energy drains, and fears and stressors that were happening at that time that I was in school. I do believe that one of the best things that I can do as a musician and as a creative person is kind of just to not give a shit about what anybody thinks about you or you think about you. And it releases a lot of emotions because you start to enjoy music. You start to enjoy it again. When you put these expectations on yourself to be a certain way, it's hard to even enjoy music, and you become dark and you become cynical. In the last 6 months or so, for me, going through this major flare up has been really great, because I just told everybody the truth, and I had to let a lot of people down and say, I can't play these gigs, I can't do this and that, but I wasn't going to beat myself up for that. And there's always going to be a time to be creative. And I think releasing all of that and releasing the expectations of, oh, if I don't do these gigs now, they're never going to call me, and I'm never going to play a gig again, and I have no more future. I'm like, it's all a lie. It's all something you tell yourself. And when you release that, you release the stress. It lets your body heal better. And I think it boils down to that. And so that whole, your dreams, like you not being able to, what was it? What's the phrase about the wrist? Your reach
exceeds your grasp. No, yes, your reach exceeds your grasp. Yeah.
Yeah. So like that, to me, that's a phrase that like it makes sense, but then you can interpret it in different ways as well, as just a stressor, right? Because in any way, like your reach might be having a smooth transition of selling these houses or buying a home, but it can't happen right away, you know? So it's ways to reframe that same idea of stress that makes sense to me. And so how we mitigate that and accept it, and then move forward has been a journey to figure out and to just work with and talk about. So the less I worry, the better I feel, and people are there and they're supportive. And then you have one good day, and then that also creates a trajectory. You know, that same sort of energy that can bring you down can also bring you back up. It just depends on what way you want to believe in it.
Yeah, and this is why I think it's actually such a blessing. There's a phrase for bipolar people that they're like everybody else, only more so. And I think that's very much like somebody who's autoimmune. You know, you have that tendency, but your warning lights go off and the alarm bells go off louder than other people's. And that is actually quite a gift in a way, because it forces you to be able to deal with these issues much quicker than most people who will sort of bury them and not move on. You know, people who've been through some serious issue and then recovered, to me, I love them. They're sort of, you know, they're really sort of formed people, and usually very chilled about everything, and they realize what's important and what isn't, you know. Mm-hmm. And the emotional side of it, when I first started in it, I didn't understand. I couldn't have done it that quickly. The only reason I did it that quickly in the past couple of days, it's not magic. It's just that I've done it 1,000 times and failed, right? You know, I've sat there and tapped and done all these things, and it hasn't worked. And because I've been working on the wrong thing, or trying to delve into childhood when it's something that probably happened yesterday or something like that, trying to get too clever with it, when usually your major symptom is to do with the major thing that keeps you up at night. You know, if something's worrying you like crazy, that's the thing to work on. Just go for it. And that might lead to a whole realization of how that trait has gone since childhood. But there's no point, you know, trying to figure out something that happened when you were 2 years old initially. I mean, it might lead back to that, because you might sort of get a flavor of it as it collapses. And then you go, oh, hang on. That's why that happened, you know, back in childhood. I mean, I didn't have a rough childhood. I quite the opposite. I was completely spoiled. And so I was given everything I wanted. And so now I get really entitled and like, no, I want some money. I'm not willing to get up and do anything about it, though. Just fucking get up, you know, and do something. That's what I need to do. And you know, I realized that, and I find it funny now. But for a long time, I didn't realize that. It was like, you know, what's happened? Why has nobody bailed me out of this? Why has nobody bailed me out of that? My dad always used to. And so that set me back. You know, a lot of people who've had really rough childhoods grow up really quickly. I didn't really grow up, but I mean, I haven't really anyway yet. I'm 60, but I didn't even start growing up till I was about 48 when I got really sick. And so, before that, I was just a sort of emotional wreck. I mean, I was quite funny and all that, and I had some good friends, but there wasn't the depth that I thought there was, and I had to admit that and do a hell of a lot of work. And having done a hell of a lot of work in those 2 years, sort of 2012, 2013, I now I'm quite good at it. I'm quite practiced, and so I can look at an issue and blow it up quite quickly, instead of going into that sort of denial stage of, oh, that's not me. There's nothing wrong with me. I haven't got any emotional issues. When you go on emotional issues to somebody, you think that you're saying they're somehow defective. But we've all got them. We've absolutely all got them. And life is pretty much about figuring them out and becoming a sort of better person for yourself, because it's much easier to live with yourself when you haven't got all this shit going on, right? And it's definitely easier for your family to get on with you and your friends and whatever. I mean, I've lost friends from being a twat. I mean, I've never been mean and I've never been horrible, but I have been sort of a bit self-centered, and I haven't really quite realized how my wonderful, marvelous ideas for everybody else are not really quite so good for them. I get a bit over enthusiastic, and that was what happened in my last band. And I kind of understand their problem now. It's funny because a guy from that band who I hadn't spoken to since 2008, and we were so, since the early 90s, we were just, inseparable in all sorts of bands, and had amazing, well, in fact, the late 80s, mid 80s. And then it all went wrong after that many years. And now I've realized that it wasn't, and I thought it was a whole load of things from him, and he thought it was a whole load of things from me. And now we just sort of threw them all aside. And he's had this great awakening as well. And it's just a joy to be with him and go around and see what he's doing now in his music, and he's running a studio. And we've got sort of so many decades to catch up on, well, a decade and a bit to catch up on. And it's marvelous. And we haven't even mentioned any of that stuff because it's just all gone, because life's too short for that stuff. So, to be able to blow all that stuff up, I mean, things like that, issues with people, it's very good. The Byron Katie stuff, the 4 questions. Is it true? Are you sure it's true? How does this thought make you feel? How would you feel without this thought? And you can really pretty much blow up any belief that you've got into the fact that it's probably nonsense. And now I've done that so much over the period sort of 2010 to 2013. Now, if something like that comes up, I can just go, are you sure it's true? No, I'm done. I'm not sure anything's true. And that's why, even all about the whole world situation now, I don't know what's true. I don't know all the sort of one side or the other. You never really know. You suspect, and your intuition says things, and you don't really trust anybody. So, you can have an open mind to anything, and that's a lot easier to get through everything. And that's the same, you're sort of in an argument, when you're sure somebody's wrong, and then you go, well, you know what, they might be right. I'll have some argument with the missus, and we have great arguments because we hardly ever have them, and they last a very short time, and then we end up laughing about them very quickly. And it's usually, I look at it and I go, I can actually see all her point of view anyway, and that's a great way to be. And then you can never sort of really get those stresses that you have when you're living with somebody that can't get unwound, that are very nasty. So got rid of all of those. So my ones I'm still working on are just money and, stuff like that. But anyway, listen, Jan, haven't seen you for a while. How are you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
Still struggling. Probably not quite as bad as they were probably about 3 months ago, but they're still not sort of easing down as I would have hoped, and as they have done in the past. So I still don't know, but you were talking about different areas of the body, meaning different things. And at the moment, I've got so many areas of my body that are affected. And I've sort of sat there and I've done the bit, drop into your heart, I love you. Okay, I love your knee. Now, what is it you're trying to tell me? And I haven't sort of got very far with that either. It's, I don't know.
It takes a while, especially because you've had this for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And it really does take a while and a load of perseverance and a load of patience. I probably spent a year. I mean, how long has it been since I started these things? Not that long, but a year or so before I even started to get anywhere with it.
Right. Oh, well, that gives me a little bit of encouragement then.
I think what I'd like to do at one of these meetings is to get my friend Maidi on. And she's just amazing at these things. Maidi Goodson, maidigoodson.com, MEIDI Goodson.com. And she just lives down the road. She helped me with all of this. She's a friend. She's been a friend for a long time. And now she works with us at the Red Pill and Human Unleashed, and goes and visits Jeremy, and Jeremy visits him, visits her. And she's done some guest spots on the Human Unleashed. But she's fantastic. I would say that I would really recommend that if you want to get to the root of how to find out what's wrong and where those issues come from and those real knots, have a chat to Maidi. Actually, have a chat to her. I'll put the link up in the group or whatever. But she's fantastic, and she takes you through stuff, and she's funny, and she's really naughty and irreverent, and I love her. She's very cool. And she understands all the carnivore stuff as well. And she's not somebody who's going to tell you to go vegan or anything like that. So she's very cool and just an absolute master at all of this stuff. If you can do it on your own, I did it mostly on my own, but Maidi really helped me to understand how to apply the things I was already doing, because I was kind of misfiring with them,
Yeah, I think sometimes, something might be really quite obvious, but you don't see it because of your perspective, and sometimes just somebody, pointing it out or triggering something in you helps you along the way.
Exactly. I mean, I expect Maidi probably sees more people cry more often than anybody else in the world, as she unwinds these issues. It's beautiful, and anybody who's good in that field, but I just know Maidi is, and she's great. So I'd really recommend that for anybody who's struggling with that side of it. But how have you been doing with eating? Have you been managing to choke all this revolting meat down and stuff?
Well, I will admit at times I just think, oh, I'm really fed up with this, I just want something else. And, and again, if you go out with friends and things, and they're all eating all sorts of other stuff. So, occasionally I thought, oh, blow it, I'll have a chip, but but generally when I'm at home, I tend to stick to it more. But it's the drinks I find more than anything. I stick to the meat, because I quite like beef and lamb are my sort of favourite ones, and I tend to eat that quite easily. But it's sort of the drink, it's just wanting something nice and comforting to sort of drink. But
yeah, well, half a pint of brandy is always good.
No, I don't like alcohol.
No, I've never found drinks comforting. I've never had the hot drink thing. Hey. That looked more like, are you doing urine looping there, Ryan?
What was that?
Are you doing urine looping? Have you been drinking?
Yeah, right. Yeah. These are my roommates' drinks. I don't know what they're drinking.
Oh no, Ryan's just showing off his bottles of piss, isn't he? Cool. So Julie, how's it going with you?
Well, I was hoping I was going to be off the coffee. I am an addict with coffee. I don't care what anyone says. I cannot get off it. I have done something miracle though. If you want to talk about losing weight, if you do this kind of eating like you teach us, Phil, I dropped like 7 pounds in my first week. Second week, I kept going down and down and down, and then I fuck it up. Screw it up with like a peanut butter. What's up with that damn peanut butter?
Oh, you did as well.
I went right into a flare up. But during this whole time since you started these, I have, and this is a horrible, because I hate to admit it, but I'm an addict. I went from 56 ounces of coffee, I'm down to 12. I had planned on being off by I thought, I didn't even know we had this happening today. I was planning on being off by next weekend. So I'm still cut, and I want all the effects of feeling good. I'm still in a flare up. I think Ryan was talking about his fingers. Mine are like little fat older fat fingers, I should say. I'm still in a flare up, but way better. And I'm telling you, the difference I'm feeling without all that coffee, I can't wait to get rid of it. You were talking, oh my God, you said so much today. I can't even believe we're having this story about the emotional, because I'm the same way. I actually ran into a friend. It was a coincidence, no coincidence, but we ran into each other. He's like a spiritual advisor. And he goes, Julie, you're so bottled up. And I am. I'm the same way with you. I'm like, as you, I'm like, I'm 61. I want to friggin' retire. And this presidency we're in is screwing with everything that we have. And I see me not retiring and hoping to God I can keep my job for the next. So I'm so bottled up. And when you talked about the sciatica is my middle name. I have been in physical therapy, but then this change of eating has drastically almost corrected it. So if anyone's not believe, I have been listening to you all the time. I listen to your Red Pill. I read your book over and over. I have certain sections highlighted, and I'm like, he said that too. Oh my God. And then Dr. Chafee, I just love that guy, being so young and knowing everything already without having all the ailments we have, is just amazing. And the people that are in the carnivore world. So I am, still gonna eat the way I'm eating. I hate lamb. I don't know what it is, but I'm eating the high fat ribeyes because I can right now. I can afford it. And hamburg. And what's the other thing that you have? The broth. The broth. Very little coffee, and I'm almost off it, which I do plan to be off it this week by the end of this week coming. And I want the full effect. I want the weight loss, and I don't even care about the weight. I want to feel, I am in so much chronic pain. I got, which is better, by the way. But that psoriatic arthritis, you end up with the stuff on your skin, like breakouts and stuff. And I have it on my ankle again. It came back out. And I think it was that damn peanut butter that I had. And because I go off every now and then, I don't want any more of those. I want to just keep it clean I don't want to be suffering. So I just can't believe we had this conversation today about releasing. And to get to the point, my spiritual friend said, Julie, just release it and let it go, whatever it is. And it was about the finances, because I'm debt free except my house, and I can't get the house paid off. And it's like, I'm gonna have to work till I'm 10 more years, and I'm sick of it. And he goes, just let it go. Just let it go. Give it away. Said, can I call you again? So
that's cool. I mean, hopefully they'll cancel all the debts soon, because they're all criminal, aren't they? So, and then I'll be really sorry that I got rid of these 6 houses that had debts on them, because they'd all be mine now. I keep that in the back of my mind when I flogged them at auction. I think, did I really do the right thing? We'll see. I don't know whether it's Nisara Gasara thing. We'll have to see what happens. But yeah, I just think I needed to be rid of the karma of them, But yeah, it's interesting, this coffee thing, because Anthony's really against it, isn't he? It's just a neurotoxin, pack that in. And then some people are fine, like Sophia drinks it, and she said she cut it out for a few months and nothing really happened. She didn't notice any benefits, so she drank it again. And then she eats a PKD diet, but she didn't have anything wrong with her anyway. So she probably has no issue with it, because the body clears stuff, even toxins when, it's not full of other toxins. So yeah, it can be an issue. I think I don't know. I haven't experienced it myself. I just think of Ben and Jeremy coming off it recently and sort of like being bedridden and stuff, for a bit, and they just went cold turkey. And I don't know, that's kind of surprised me that it was that powerful a drug, because you see how powerful a drug is when you come off it, right? And you never think of coffee as a drug. Oh, everyone drinks coffee. Well, except for me.
It's been horrible. It was horrible. Headaches, migraines. I'm literally sick. So that's why someone told me, they said, Julie, someone in your condition with all your autoimmune and she said issues. And I know what she meant, because I have a lot of them. She said, you should never come off of it with all your stuff. Go down off of it. And I've never weaned down off it. Like alcohol. Are you kidding me? I'm either shit-faced or I'm not. I love alcohol. And so I can't drink it because I know where I'll be. And coffee, I can't even believe I'm just cutting down. And I thought today I was going to be off of it, but not yet. But I'll work on it. I do feel better. The headaches are nothing like they were now. So thankfully I listened to someone and didn't do a cold turkey, because I always feel like when I do that, I set myself up for failure. And he told me one other thing, and I'll shut up after this. He said, Julie, when your body and your mind's going 90 miles an hour and your body's trying to run, and when those two meet, it's like a big clash, and boom, you're down for the count. And it's like, wow. I said, I got to come talk to you again. It was like so awesome. And I can't believe you talked about this today. It's the exact conversation I had this weekend with someone.
Well, I'd been thinking about it because Joe and Jill both send their apologies today, by the way. I forgot to say at the beginning, they've double booked. But, Joe kind of brought it up and went into it at the end of the last meeting. And somebody in the group, in the Facebook group, seemed to really like that. And I just think it's a side that isn't talked about so often. I mean, we talk about the carnivore diet, and this is fantastic because it brings the symptoms down really low. And so then you can actually you can say, okay, right, what is it that's going on? Why do I have it in that knee and not the other knee? The sort of thing a rheumatologist could never tell you, Why do I have it in that knee? Okay, left side, female. Maybe that's to do with my mother. Maybe it's to do, whatever it is, the little investigations you go on, the left side being the feminine side of the body, the right side, the masculine. And all these little things that you can investigate into. And it's such a it's such a beautiful detective work to do when the carnivore diet, for example, has brought down the symptoms a lot, so they're manageable. Because if anybody's had a sort of full-on arthritis flare, my God, it is really difficult to think about anything else apart from the pain. It's it's just like, fuck off. I've had enough. Why me? Why now? And, the house over there, well, I mean, this house had 2 holes in doors, but that was with house sales falling through. But my last house had holes in the doors because of just like, why me? The frustration, and I could actually punch a door then because I didn't have it in any hand or wrist at the time. It was all legs and ankles and back. And so I could still punch a door, It's like, and then you're like, oh God, my knuckles are sore. Is that going to bring it into the knuckles? Have I done it? What have I done? This bit, the frustration of it, when it's that bad, it's very difficult to deal with it. But as soon as coming onto the carnivore, things tend to calm down to a point where you can actually look at them rationally. And your brain works better, of course, because it's not so panicked and, in that sort of vegan panic and crying and fight or flight all the time. And then you can sort of consider things more calmly. So yeah, it all goes hand in hand. So Peace, what do you reckon? There's sort of some of your stuff prompted this, and what do you think? Where are we getting with this? Any clues?
Yeah, I've been sitting quietly trying to think or feel into where the emotional side would come in. Yes, there's been a lot of trauma and anxiety and PTSD and all that kind of thing. So I guess this stage of finding ourselves again will deliver some releases, but I would really be curious as to find whether there's somebody there that can help with that release. I don't know whether your friend you mentioned, is that what she does, Phil?
Oh yeah, all the time. Have you spoken to her yet? Because I'm okay at this, but as part of a consult, and I often go into this side of things with people. But to really get to the root of it, if you really want to find some real master, I would definitely have a word with Maidi. Okay. She's lovely, and you'll get on with her great. I mean, I'm cool with these sort of things, but also, I would say particularly there's some kind of energy of a woman to a woman as well. When you're going into this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I find it, I find it very, very easy. You can see it very quickly, like I was talking to somebody with endometriosis recently on a consult, and I know that carnivore diet brings that right down. Yeah. But she was saying, listen, I've got some trauma and I've got some childhood trauma and this and that. And she didn't want to talk about it. And I didn't want to push her on it. But I said, I bet I know what type of childhood trauma that is, right? Because it's in that area. And she went, yeah. And I said, yeah, no need to go any further. Don't discuss it with me if you don't want to. but you can see exactly what's happened there. And she said, yeah. And I said, this is something you've got to release. And I'm not the person to really talk to about some sort of physical abuse as a child and sexual abuse. Much better to do that with somebody who is an absolute expert in that and whatever, you know. Some guy, you know, mucking about with their, I can point them towards that, and I can, you know, women and whatever, but there is definitely some sort of energy, and that's incredibly sexist of me, because as we know, there's many, many genders, and, you know, just to talk about men and women is very offensive these days. Just such nonsense. But anyway, yeah. So, you know, with the guys, I can see it. I can see those sort of patterns. I've been through that kind of thing, and I can see where they get their bravado and there's nothing wrong with me and I don't need that kind of stuff. You know, women aren't really so much into that. They just need to talk to the right person. But
that's where I feel we are at the moment. It does get you down, you know. I think, you know, we were talking about calories in, calories out thing, and it's like tracking the macros as the little experiment to see what was going on there was interesting as to what bumps up the calories and what keeps you, you know, on chronometer just below your BMI, your basal rate. And what have you. So that was interesting, because you just think some days you can eat literally hardly anything, and the next day not much more, and it's like just little increments and decreases, and you just think, if somebody normal saw what I ate in a day, they'd go, why is you so fat in it? Do you know what I mean?
I know, same thing. But then again, you know, when I was on a veggie diet, I mean, that blog post that I've got where it's I think if you Google Phil Escott, my journey from healing psoriatic arthritis or something, anyway, but my healing journey, Phil Escott, my healing journey, you'll find it. And there's a picture of me, real fatty with dreadlocks, you know, so stop showing off with yours. And then a real emaciated vegan with dreadlocks, you know, slightly longer, so you can see the time difference from the dreadlock growth, and then, you know, just getting back to health and sort of balancing it out, just how emaciated I did get, but how overweight I was, and when I was overweight, I wasn't eating much. I was just eating the wrong things that caused inflammation, that was storing toxins in the fat, and I was exercising all the time, and I wasn't losing it. Just couldn't get on top of it, couldn't understand it. And then, you know, lying down on the sofa, eating 3,000 or 4,000 calories of fatty meat a day and not doing anything. And I got a set of abs. And it was like, hold on, you know, everything's wrong, I've been told. And we lose weight at times when, we lose fat, I have to specify, at times when the body is ready to clear that kind of thing. You know, and it can be. And every time we have this at this time, don't we, the ice cream van makes an appearance. So here it is coming down the street at the moment, selling ice cream and heroin. And there we go. So my kids are going to go out for probably an ice lolly and a bag of smack. They'll come piling down the stairs in the moment. They always chase it down the street, particularly when I'm stuck on one of these calls and I can't stop them. But yeah, so, you know, anyway, you know, heroin's good for losing weight, so whatever.
Not really into that, I'm afraid. No, it's a bit expensive, you know.
yeah, there is that. Yeah, here he goes. One's off to get it. One's off, chasing the van down the street. I knew it would happen. Yeah.
You mentioned the psoriatic arthritis before, and the foot thing, ankle. You mentioned. I've got this foot.
Just the one. Just the one.
Just the one foot. Yeah, the other one's quite happy, you know.
Oh, I see. You got two. Cool.
Yeah, I have got two. My right foot has always been a bit of a nemesis, and you know, it gets these little tiny lumpy red bits that then a little bit like pustules, and then they get scabby and then they come off. It's a bit like eczema, but I just thought it was an RA thing. But I've been told it isn't RA that I've got. I've probably got fibro. But I'm wondering, why does my foot, and has that done that for years and years and years? And occasionally it will just clear up, and then it'll come right back again months later. It's very strange.
It's interesting, isn't it? Again, you know, these diagnoses I think they all sort of flow into one. You've got mitochondrial disruption, and that's that. Something's going wrong. And then there is a time when the body gets rid of toxins and weird things come out. But that sounds like a bit of a vegan-y thing. Oh, we're just detoxing. But it does happen. It is true. And it is quite well documented that, say, you know, during oxalate dumps, you get sort of skin issues. This and that happens. And it could, with certain parts of the body, I don't know, why does it go there? Does it go there because it's a slightly weaker part, because it's weak, and because there's something to do with a male in your life on that right-hand side that you're trying not to run away from, whether it's an emotion about that male, whether it's a sort of something about your dad or something. I don't know, I'm just guessing. But that would be where I'd sort of start to investigate. But as for the sort of physical issue of it, I don't know. When you have anything autoimmune, weird things can go along with it. Like in the early days of my psoriatic arthritis, the weirdest things happened. You know, somebody sent me a photocopy of a page in my book where I'd written a load of symptoms on 2 sides of paper for my rheumatologist. And I'm looking at them thinking, I don't even remember that. You know, oh yeah, that was weird. I'd forgotten all about that. You know, so many weird things happen. I wanted to chase around every department in the hospital. This is happening, that's happening. I had a rash around the middle, you know. I had I had this weird thing on the palm of my hand, which apparently is called pompholix, which looks like you've got a load of tiny little water blisters, but they're not raised up. They're sort of, if skin feels rough, but they're sort of in line with the thing. And it bloody hurts, you know. I mean, it was great for one thing, getting out of the washing up, you know, because it was too painful to do it. Can you do the washing up? I can't do it. But, you know, it was horrific. And it was like the palm of my hand was rotting. And then that just disappeared and never came back. I mean, what is that? It's an autoimmune condition that nobody particularly understands. And you'd end up with a load of steroid creams and a load of, you know, crappy pills from the doc. Excuse me. And they have no idea why it happens. They have no idea how to get rid of it. And neither do I. I don't know why it happens, but I know that if you get everything else in order, all these little things tend to sort of go away on their own, you know, along with all the other things. So I don't know, but it's worth looking at the specifics of it.
Yeah.
That little boy, he's like 7 years old. Somebody of, you know, 200 pounds couldn't make that amount of noise going up the stairs. It's incredible. Did you see that video I posted on my Facebook of him coming down the stairs? It's unbelievable. He just skis. He just doesn't even touch the flat bit of the stairs. Just, boom. It's just done it. Great. Well done. Okay. Enough. It's too noisy. Out here. But yeah, it's so I don't know, you know, it's all a matter of detective work, isn't it? And just really, really looking at everything really honestly.
Yeah.
Sort of, you know, that thing that I was saying, and it is difficult to do. It's like Jan was saying earlier, it's just sort of sitting there and really sort of asking what it is. Sometimes it can work, and sometimes you can sit there and go, what am I doing? This is bullshit, you know? But sometimes it actually works. Or if you just really focus on that thing, instead of maybe just focus, like I did the other night, instead of just, I didn't sort of focus on it and say, oh, what are you trying to teach me or anything? I just sort of thought, I want to move. And then I moved, and then I kept on doing things. And then suddenly I thought, it isn't that though. It was almost like I'd gone the wrong way on a map and then came back again. Although that was probably right as well. That's what I needed at the time, to free up a blockage that even made me realize that it was something to do with that. I was sort of sitting there and I was thinking, oh yeah, I used to do a bit of this back in the old house. And I thought, yeah. And then I was reading that in a Seagull book, and I said, hang on, what is it about? You know, it's just a matter of being on the floor that took me back to that memory of reading that book, you know, around the same time I was last doing that sort of thing. And then that triggered that off. And then I blew up that fear. And I just thought, no, just have gratitude for every single time you need money, it comes. Every single time. Just without fail. It's almost supernatural. I mean, we sort of, there was one point where we couldn't pay 300 quid of our rent, and it's like 600 quid a month, and it was nothing. And we really got into some trouble like a year or so ago. And I thought, actually, I don't know how to do this. We've never been where we can't pay the rent before. I thought, how do I do it? It's only 300 quid. Something will turn up. Oh, yeah, it will. And it was literally ping. The phone went. and it was Ben from The Human Unleashed saying, hey, anyone fancy an extra 300 quid this month as a dividend because we've got some new members or something had happened. I can't remember. It wasn't 200. It wasn't 301. It was 300. And it was within a second, you know, and these things sort of happen constantly. And it's just marvelous. It's hilarious to watch it. And after this long, without getting complete confidence in it and complete gratitude for it, I'm not surprised my back went, right, listen, fuck you, you absolute idiot. Will you listen to me now? You know? And it had to create that for me to actually, and I think I made a real breakthrough on it permanently the other day because I've just changed my attitude to it now. I mean, yeah, I'm still worried about this house going through a bit, but in general, money coming in when we need it, nah, I've had enough of worrying about that. It just always happens.
Yeah, attitude of gratitude.
Yeah. And I think, you know, another really important thing, such an important thing, and brought into the emotional side is, you know, I remember a long time ago, and I might have mentioned this on another episode, but a long time ago when I was really sick, and I remember a load of people gathered together, you know, in some Zoom, well, it wasn't a Zoom call, they were sitting around a table, you know, and it was something being filmed of all these gurus, health gurus, supposedly. And they were asked, what is the most important thing for health? And there was a few, I can't remember who was there, but one of them was David Avocado Wolf, who I think is way off base on 99% of the stuff he says, particularly to have an actual name, avocado. Come on, man, you know, seriously. But, you know, everybody was saying, oh, diet or grounding or light or this or that. And he just went, following your path in life, finding exactly what it is that you want to do, you know? And I really think that it works. It's very woo-woo and all that. But if you're on your absolute path in life, you might well end up with riches. But in the meantime, when you think, I can't possibly sustain myself on that, if you're really on the right path in life and it is helping people and it's helping you to, you don't even have to help other people necessarily, but help you to progress and whatever and be fulfilled, then so much else falls into place. And you find that if you're on that path, there's these really weird synchronicities where the right people turn up, money turns up, this and that happens, you know. And that I would say is really important. So well done, David Wolf, for that one. I think you nailed that.
I trained with him. I actually trained with him.
Did you in person?
Yeah.
I tell you what, he might have some things, but he is a terrible drummer. If you can find, there is a YouTube video of him somewhere, and it's awful. And you can tell that he's going on there and he's playing like, look at me, I can drum as well. And his time, and he keeps speeding up and just wrecking things and then falling apart. And that'd be fine if it's like, yeah, I can play a bit, I'll have a go. But you could tell he really thought he could play. And it was terrifying. You have to check that one out, Ryan, sometime. I don't know where to find it, but it's on YouTube somewhere and it's absolutely horrific. But yeah. Sorry, so what happened? You actually went out and studied with him or something?
No, we spent some time with him when he came over to the UK a few times. And I did his superfood nutrition training. And then
Is it the Cacao Connection?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It was him and Shazzy Love. Do you remember Shazzy?
No.
She started well, it's now called Superfoodies, her company. But yeah, back in the day when we went raw, we found the raw chocolate routine and then found David and Shazzy and then did all the trainings, hung out with them both in London and had dinners and things like that. And yeah, I've still got a photograph with me having a good old snuggle with him.
I thought you were going to say snog.
Well, that could have happened. He's a bit of a player, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, but he's batshit crazy, you know, mostly.
Yeah. He is now, a bit. Yeah.
Snake salesman of the highest regard.
Yeah, very much so. But in that one respect, I think he got it right. And he's found his path in life and as a snake oil salesman, so he's happy and things are working out for him. So that's cool. Yeah. But anyway, that's kind of on the. I want to make sure I get this sort of under the time, so it definitely gets recorded on Zoom on the cloud. And has anyone got any sort of other thoughts or anything like that? Anybody? Okay.
One question.
Yeah, go.
How do you do your liver flushes, please?
Well, I will send you the protocol. It's basically the Andreas Moritz version, but without the vegan diet that killed him. Poor old Andreas, because he was, again, brilliant at everything else. You know, his books, I just, still, you read some of his books on the sort of emotional, spiritual stuff, you stop every other line to digest it. It's magnificent. But he was caught in the plant-based eating. You know, so many people have woken up to all this stuff, you know, like how much I upset Vernon Coleman with my piece in the Light paper. Poor old Vernon. Oh, well, he's marvelous with everything, but hasn't woken up about the veggie thing. But he challenged me, so he shot himself in the foot. But yeah, so it's the malic acid in the week leading up to it. You know, back the liver up with bile for a couple of days before, but not with the low fat diet for the week. Just fast for a couple of days. Then on the day, and then the malic acid not from apple juice, so it's not sugary. So, you know, apple cider vinegar or malic acid powder. And then on the day, don't eat. And then 6 o'clock, a load of Epsom salts, 8 o'clock Epsom salts, and then 10 o'clock, the whole olive oil and grapefruit juice mix. And that is really the nicest bit. It sounds revolting, but it's my only use for plants, apart from, you know, to trigger a nice flare with some peanut butter or whatever. But, you know, some olive oil and Epsom salt and grapefruit juice just helps to sort of break it down and get it down, because it's difficult to chug down the olive oil. I don't think the grapefruit juice is necessary, but olive oil on its own is a bit of a chore. Very difficult to get down, but with that, it's actually quite nice, particularly if you haven't eaten for 2 or 3 days. It's like food. It's like, I could have some more of that. And then you just wait, and then in the morning you have Armageddon, and it's spectacular. But I'll put up in the group. I'll put up the protocol for it, or send it to you. That was Ben's expression. I thought that is just so perfect. It's just bang on, isn't it? So we use that all the time now. And then, yeah, 2 doses, 6 in the morning, 8 in the morning, or whenever you wake up, and then 2 hours later, Epsom salts again, which you really don't want by that stage, but you have to do that, or you don't clear them all. But it really works, and it's a load of woo-woo, and there's probably people going to be watching this on YouTube going, that's a load of nonsense. I've Googled it, and it says it's just saponification from what you drink. Well, that's it. It can be different every time. You can have none, or you can have thousands come out, and it doesn't work that way. And the results we've seen are incredible, particularly for skin issues, because also skin issues can be the liver backed up, and when you free up the liver, then you can often clear the skin issues in time. So, and we've seen that work over and over again, and it's the only bit of woo-woo that I have really left over from the vegan plant-based cure type woo-woo cure things, because 99% of them were rubbish. More than 99% didn't work at all. But liver flushing, there is something magical about it, definitely. Yeah. So there we go. Okay, guys, listen, because I've done all the festival-y thing and obviously needed to get myself in a terrible mess and get out of it to do this week's one. And we shall go next week. And Stephen hasn't talked as much as he does usually this week, but Stephen, and then we had a bit of a chat before I actually started recording. So Stephen, you're first in next week for big things, unless there's something you want to say at the end, or I'll give you the end.
I don't think so. I think, I did very well refraining from going on too long of a rambling rant like I usually do. But no, this was great. I enjoyed listening. And Julie, congratulations on cutting back on the coffee quite a bit, because when I did it, it was pretty revolutionary. I still drink a little bit, but it's like half of what I used to. But the mental clarity later in the day, you'll find quite refreshing, I think. But that's it for me today, for this week.
All right, guys. So next week, same time. Watch the group, because it might possibly be a Saturday, not a Sunday, only because it's my daughter's 14th on the Sunday, and I'm not sure what we're doing. We might be doing something on the Saturday or the Sunday. I'm not sure which. So watch out for which one it is. I'll keep you posted. All right, guys. Lovely to see you.
All right.
Thank
See you
you.
next time.
Always a pleasure.
For me too. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.